And now it's my pleasure to introduce Karla Lortz. And some of you will remember that Karla spoke to us in September of 2019, so exactly 5 years ago. And once again, she's here to begin our garden club program year. Karla is the former president of the North American Heather Society and the author of the book Heaths and Heathers, Color for All Seasons. And she owns a mail order nursery and display garden, Heaths and Heathers, where she grows more than 800 cultivars. I think she's only going to have time to tell us but a few of them today. And Karla, we're very much looking forward to your presentation. I was anyhow, and just hearing you talk about the plants beforehand and your excitement just really generated more enthusiasm. So thank you so much for being with us.
What we've got here is a couple of things we're going to do today. One is the slides, and then I wanted to talk about the individual plants themselves because and show you those and talk about it because there's nothing like having a plant in your hand. So Heaths and Heathers I bought from Alice Knight in 1995. Heather Akers is who she was, and I bought the mail order division. Alice passed away last year at the ripe old age of 96. So I still have contact with their daughter though. So changes in Heaths and Heathers since I was here 5 years ago is that I no longer sell the lighter size. I now sell gallons. The idea is to step me down towards retirement by selling less because they're more expensive and I produce less of them. The result has been a pain in my back because the boxes I ship out are now 40, 50 pounds a piece. So probably 95% of what I do is shipping. As they become more expensive, I've noticed quite a few in the local area from Kent to Oregon are coming up to grab plants now because they're expensive to ship. I keep the price down on the plants to $12 by me being the only worker. And if I'm out of something, I go buy it and wholesale and not crowd, that's fine. Almost all of these are grown by me except for some of the carnias and a few cinerias. The main difference being I grow integral mix, which is a sewage sludge mix, and it's combined with bark, woody products, and then we combined it more with bark. And so that's how I grow mine. I propagate them in pure sand with no soil at all because you don't get fungus gnats that way. So that's how I propagate. The stuff I buy in is grown conventionally. So that's how they're done. I have probably more like 1,200 varieties, and I'm going to be doing less and less. I'll probably quit shipping in 2006 because I'll be 65 next April. So it's time to step down a little bit, right? And go do something else. But I love to grow. So I may continue to sell them out for my place and may continue to speak at clubs as well. So let's start with, I wanted to show you, this is not the best of slides. Is there any way to get rid of the lights up front? I'm going to show you the difference between a Heath and Heather in the long run and why, as none of us seem to be getting any younger for some reason, it's much easier to grow a Heath than a Heather in the long run if you don't want to prune, if you just want to let it be. You can see here, you can see the Heath is the green and the out of control stuff around it are Heathers that are not pruned. And you should realistically prune a Heather every year because if you don't, you get bare stem, new growth, bare stem, new growth, and it's just a ratty looking plant. A Heath, you can just pretty much leave most of them alone and they look fine the following year. And every once in a while, you just give them a light shearing to shape. And there again is, you can see, if you go back one, you can see the Heath in the middle. It's actually an Erica Darlians. It's a winter Heath. I just took this a few days ago in an unruly spot, which is in the back 40 of my property. And you can see the heather around it that's totally self-seeded. And therefore I don't prune it. Okay. Okay, down front, this is a winter shot. Down front is Irish Treasure. And this one needs very little care, and the ones above it are heathers and must be pruned every year. This is WG pine, another Darliensis. And the Darliensis, I'll show you later, they're a cross between an Erica aerugina and an Erica carnea, and I do have both here. Erica aeruginas are quite rare, you'll never find them. Erica carneas are low growing, Erica aeruginas can be up to 5 feet tall. So what you have is a Darliensis, which is a middle size, maybe 18 to 24 inches tall. They come in a variety of colors. This is more of your lilac, darker lilac. Okay, this is White Spring Surprise. And this is, in the front is actually Zeta, and they are now hybridizing heather that do not bloom. This is one of them. Guess what, if you don't prune it every year, it doesn't matter a whole lot. So every once in a while you can prune the non-blooming heather as well. And they make a great accent plant just for the color. They come in silver, they come in one that's going to turn almost blackish purple. I'll show it to you. I brought it. They come in yellow. They come in one of the most startling scarlet red colors I've ever seen, called Zoe. It's planted at one of our local schools for winter color there. So that is an option if you don't want to do much pruning. White Spring Surprise is sort of a blackish purple foliage with these flowers that kind of end up with a little blush pink at the end, and it's a spore to Spring Surprise. So it was a surprise. So it sported that. Okay, this is Furzy. It's kind of like WG pine. This is an old timer that many of you might be familiar with. It has darkish purplish foliage, and in the spring it has red tips on the growth and gives you color from November to May. So the gardening is not over with heather. It may just be beginning with the Heaths. So when the bumblebees are out in January and looking for something, Darliensis and carneas are wonderful because, as you know, January can be weirdly warm sometimes before February turns cold. Bees, they flock to. Whenever it's warm enough, those bubbles are something else. And they come to these and even in the rain. So that's an old time garden variety. Okay, White Perfection. There's a couple of different kinds of whites. Sorry about the picture. White Perfection is parsley green with a pure white. The kind you see at the store called Mint White is actually silver schmelz, which is an off-white with a olive drab foliage. I think White Perfection is more useful because it pops. And there's nothing prettier than White Perfection next to an orange foliage plant or a yellow. They pop those. If you have too many orange foliage, they kind of look like dirt. So you need something to pop the orange color, the red color, and the whites. So the winter blooming whites and maybe a summer heather that's red works really well. Okay, this is Gold Rush. This one came out to be somewhat of a monster. It is, I swear, it's this high, and it is that white. It's huge. That is one plant, and never prune it. I just take cuttings off of it. And I think it's right next to a faucet. I don't know if that has something to do with that leaks. It is a hybrid and was created up in Canada. And I believe Arthur Johnson, which is one of the larger Darliensis, is one of his parents. Okay, this is a real favorite of my customers. I don't know that I brought any because I have hardly any left because I keep attacking them, buying them. Golden Starlet. It is an Erica carnea that's about 8 inches tall, about 4 feet wide. Even if the tag says it's only 18 inches wide, it's 4 feet wide, trust me. It's a child, a springwood white, which is one of the largest carneas. We're now into low growing winter Heaths. You were in the taller ones, now we're in the low growing ones. And this is Golden Starlet up front. And winter zone it in the back. And golden starlet looks like a ray of sunshine on a gray winter day. It's a lovely addition to the garden. And by the way, the deer don't like these guys. They don't like Heaths and Heathers.
Rabbits.
Rabbits are another story. If you have a lot of rabbits, they'll eat anything and they will eat these. I've had this problem before and then the coyotes came back to the neighborhood and now I don't have a problem again. I don't have to worry about it. So tree heaths, some of the tall tree heaths, the deer will nibble on and nibble back. And the South Africans like these, they're in a special greenhouse because they can't freeze. So I'll talk about those later. Those definitely need protection. Deer like those. We have to fence those off, but they have to be grown in a greenhouse anyway because they're tender. So I have an air house for South Africans. Okay. Okay, this is one of your, if you like to just grow heaths and you want some colorful foliage, there was golden starlet. Now we have Bell's Extra Special. It will turn the color of a bottle of whiskey, which is named after, in the winter time. So Bell's Extra Special is a really good addition to the garden for color. And you need to put colorful foliage in the sunlight in the winter. If you put it in the shade, it'll just be chartreuse. So the sun reacts to the foliage and that's where you get the color. So make sure if you have a red, or orange or yellow, those go in the sunlight. Silver, it doesn't matter, or green. Okay, this is called Hiletje. It's Dutch, Hilletje. It turns orange in the winter and it's kind of golden in the summer. Very low growing plant, reliable. Now we have Ericarnia, Myriton Ruby. You're getting into the reddish colors. And those are handy for contrast. And up here, everybody really likes the dark reds for winter. And this is your low growing again. Natalie is at the top. That is the darkest carnia, that and a Rhodes jewel that you can get. Rhodes jewel I don't typically sell because it takes like 3 years to get a saleable plant if I'm lucky. You're so slow. And Natalie, a couple of years, and they're typically finickier. The darker the flower, the more finicky the plant. If you can find a good location and it likes it, it's great. Good drainage is key. And they do like a little more water than the Darliensis. The Darliensis are really drought tolerant. These two attractive bees. Okay, down below you have Sunshine Rambler. And there you go with your foliage color again, and it can get orange tints in the winter. Okay, now we're to the Erigenas. Erigenas are the tall ones in the garden, besides tree heaths. These are tall bushes. And so they're the ones that you cross with those low carnias to get you the Darliensis. This is WT Ratcliffe White. It's an honest zone 7 plant. Carnias are a zone 4. Darliensis, their cross is a zone 5. However, even though they say this is a zone 7 plant, isn't it funny how my zone 4s can look like they're blowtorch, the Calida vulgaris, and these will be fine. What does hardiness mean? It means the weather system that comes through your garden at that moment and where the sap is in your plant, doesn't it? Because if the sap is up, they're going to split. They're going to burn. If the sap's down, they're going to be okay. And this seems to be one that seems to manage the cold in my zone 7 garden. This is an honest zone 7. Where I live on Hurstein Island is a zone 8. I live on a cove on the water, and that is definitely zone 8. I too am an islander. Only it's a tiny island. It's a bottom unit sound 5 by 10. So what zone are you guys here? 7 or 8?
8.
Does it vary? Inland's more 7, water's more zone 8. That's kind of like what we're at too. Okay. This is Hibernica. This one gets really tall, as you can tell, and that one doesn't get propagated too often because I do a lot of shipping to Maine, Michigan, Vermont, you know, the really cold places, Pennsylvania, New York, more than I do this coast, oddly enough. Okay. Irish dusk. This is an extremely useful plant. It is a salmon rose pink. And there's also Irish salmon, and the Erigenas have been utilized in hybridizing Darliensis a lot for that unusual color. So I have a winter treasure over there that has kind kind of that salmon hue to it, and a pink harmony. And those also have a salmon hue, and those are really a nice color break in the garden. Okay, this is maximum 4 feet tall round shrub. Next. Okay, this is thingy. This thing, that's a real young one. It said it was supposed to be really tall and fairly wide, but it keeps getting sunburned back to about yay tall. It's not 40 inches tall, it's a couple of feet tall, but it's still a useful plant in the garden. I think if it were a little shadier spot, it would be much taller. But you can see in the winter it's colorful. Okay, now we're into the Erica vagans, and this is a very useful plant. It's blooming now. It typically blooms partway in August, but definitely September, October. And when your bees are looking for something to eat, this is it. This is what they flock to because it's blooming. Mine are a bit early because they're grown on black landscape fabric with black pots. So they're going to start earlier. But this is a really good bee food for fall when they run out of everything. And you can really see the honeybees and the bumblebees on these. Yellow John, if you want that group with colorful foliage, there it is. That's a really good one. I brought some of those as well. This is St. Gavern. It's in the garden, just another more pinkish color than rose pink or lavender. Okay, this is related to Erica vagans, but it's much taller. It's, you know, it could be 3 feet tall easily in the manipuliflora. I have a cross of manipuliflora, which we'll see in the next one, hopefully. Oh, I did decide to do Erica Maciana next. Okay, this is Donegal. This is just a real subgroup that you'll never find anywhere. It's one of those really rare varieties, and it's just a cute little garden shrub. Okay, Griffithsky, that is a cross with the manipuliflora. This one in the garden is a couple feet high. It's a bright gold. At home, I can't even see the deer's ears behind it because it is that tall, because it's in the shade and it's chartreuse. It is not gold. So in the shade, it's extraordinarily tall, and I just let it go to see what it would do. Really tall. And in the garden, it's only a couple feet tall because it gets sunburned back, but it's a much nicer color. It gets orange tints in the winter. This is my neighbor's garden down the street. This is Heaven Sent, and she has some gardeners that have a penchant for making every single plant look like a round little poodle pup. It drives me nuts. So I told her, leave your heather alone for a couple of years. So it's starting to look a little bit better, more like it's more wild form. And this is a sport off of Heaven Sent called Jacqueline, which is a rose pink. And Heaven Sent and Jacqueline do have sort of a licorice anise smell. Heather typically doesn't have much scent to it. Okay, now we're into the flashiest of the Heaths and Heathers. This is Erica cinerea. These are summer bloomers. And they do stem split in zone 7 here and there, but they add a lot of good color. They usually come back. And they go from white to, you'll see in the next one, to this is golden drop. And I rarely see it gold. I don't know why it has the name gold drop. It's sort of goldish in summer, but it's more whiskey colored. And then it's a beautiful reddish color in the winter. And it's only about, I don't know, maybe 4 or 6 inches tall. And it's very feathery. It blooms sparsely with purple flowers. It's a great addition to the color in your garden if you don't want a heather. Don't hardly have to prune it. And probably its only drawback would be the cinereas aren't quite as drought tolerant as the Darliensis or the vagans. They need a little more water. This is Heidebrand, really dark flower, and it can even go to blackish purple with velvet night. Okay, now we're into Watsoniis, and this is Claire Elise. This is probably the darkest flower, one of the bunch. You see more mauve ones, and Dawn is a common named one. Okay. Okay, Erica ciliaris. This species is quite unusual. It's an honest zone 7 going into 8, but they seem to be fine at Spencer-like in the 7s. And this is your bicolor flower, very large flowers. They're sticky, and it's kind of best if you cut them off in spring because they kind of are quite prominent, the spent flowers. This is Aria, the yellow form of it gets orange tints in the winter. Okay, this is a really interesting little group you rarely see that I just love because they're almost all silver with the exception of a few of them. Curled roundstone is real small, but albemarle has a dusky silver with white flowers, and it's a very popular little plant. Pink pepper, I think that picture came from one of these pots I brought. It is the cutest little thing. You have to see it. It looks nicer in the pot. And it's little tiny flowers. It grows like maybe 8 inches tall. It's a kind of just a neat little plant. The more you trim it when it's young, the more it branches. So it's important to shake these when they're young, which I tried real hard to do. This is another group of plants called the Debetia cantabricus. I've got a couple of them here, and they'll take over your yard. They'll seed. They're real interesting, and they're a beautiful woodland type looking plant. This is harlequin, which doesn't know what color it wants to be, does it? It's fascinating to look at its flowers. I don't believe I have any of the there's bicolor and harlequin that have the different colors. I don't think I have those this year. Folifolia. There's your purple one, and it comes in white to lavender to pink to magenta to purple. And there's a darker purple in this too. Okay, now we're into the trees. This is another fascinating group. This picture came from California, and I always keep it. You saw it 5 years ago because mine never gets that yellow. Mine is green, and then it has yellow tips, and then it has pink flowers and pink flower buds. The flowers are actually white, but the buds are pink. So this arborea is a real beautiful thing. Pink joy. I brought one of those. I've had that in the garden for a number of years, and it just covers itself with white flowers in the springtime. This is a very rare little plant. This is Erica australis Beth. She's only about 3 feet tall or so. And I think they bought all my best the first day I was open this year by mail order. I don't think I have any left. This is one the deer have been nibbling on the tips, but I still get cuttings off of it, so. Golden Joy, I brought some small pots of this one. This is a tree heath that was a sport of a green one, and it's a beautiful golden shrub that can get about 4 or 5 feet tall with white flowers. Okay, now I wanted to show you the South Africans because I think they're so beautiful. They're only useful if you have a greenhouse or a porch that doesn't freeze or something like that. About 30 degrees, they struggle, so they need to be pretty warm. This is mimosa. This is verticillata. This is speciosa. And the hummingbirds love these plants. They just love them. They fly in there and they ride in those tubes. I have been to South Africa, and hummingbirds are all over there as well. Okay, this is just a garden scene, and that's just shows you what you can do with color. And this is the last one. It's pretty fun. And the nursery is not boring in the wintertime. Winter, there's no boring season. You have the flush of bloom you have right now that's coming to the summers will be coming to an end at the end of October-ish. And then you've got the winter heaths that'll be starting, and then they're in real full bloom in March. There's 2 prime times, it's August, September, and March. And then you have the foliage colors, which in my opinion cannot be prettier than the flowers themselves. So that concludes this part, and we'll go to the individual plants next, and we'll need some light. I wanted to start with the heathers themselves. They're kind of like eye candy over here, but they have to be pruned. I'll grab a bud blower. Okay, there's a number of ones in here called bud bloomers, and these guys are not pollinated by bees because they never open up and they bloom for months. These will be in color until like October, November. Then they gradually fade to silvery white, and then you have to cut them off in the springtime. And to prune a heather, table space. Okay, you need to cut a heather below the old flower stems, because if you don't, you're going to get bare stem, new growth, bare stem. So cut off their old flowers. That's true of every heather. except for it might be too difficult for this type that grows as flat as a pancake. You'd have to sit on the ground and cut off every stem, so we say, forget it, we just let it do its thing. So we have about 3 in the nursery, white lawn, Mrs. Ronald Gray, and Caleb Threlkel that grow flat like this. They're kind of a neat ground cover that blooms, and they grow 4 feet wide. So the other one like that is Mrs. Ronald Gray, and you can see how flat that is. It has to go up and over the pot just to get out of it to spread. So that's Mrs. Ronald Gray. Okay, so you've seen the bud bloomers. We have single flowered blooms. This is Silver Night who's done blooming. This is the big silver plant with lavender flowers. It's quite popular. So that's a single flower. Most of the single flowers are just about done. I think I have finale, which is almost just starting, will be the last one. We have the no bloomers. This one is going to go to a blackish color in the winter. So if you want a foliage plant that's almost blackish purple, here it is. Okay, now we have double flowered varieties. As you can see how plump the double flowers are? So, and I don't believe bees are able to get into double flowered ones. I've been told they have no pollen, but I've never really paid attention. I should. Okay. And that's kind of, Heather is known for its foliage color. This turns bright red winter. Oh, know what this is? I don't know what this turns. I brought this because I found this as a seedling. And it has a nicer, darker flower, but I don't know what it's gonna do. So I brought it. I don't even have a name for it. So if somebody wants it, you can have the only one that's ever been sold. And I don't know what it's going to be called yet. I have to see if it's worth being something called yet, right? So I brought it for fun. Because you're a garden club. So. Okay, I just wanted to show this one because this is one of the darker flowered ones. This is a stunning plant. It's a sport evergreen one called Dark Beauty. And Yellow Beauty has yellow foliage and then it has orange tints in the winter, but it's a stunning plant and gets the gold. So I think there's only 3 left in the nursery and that's it for the season. This is number 4.
How big is that yet?
10 inches. A lot of them are typically up to as tall, typically 20 inches is about as tall as you get. There's a few that are 24, but they really don't get that tall. They're just little shrubs, except for those big erigenas and trees. They don't get that tall. Okay, now we're going to go to the guys that I recommend for the long run if you don't want to burn. So, your winter heaths. Here's your taller Darliansis. That's a cross between the erigena and the carnea. And this one is Mary Helen, or Eva Gold, excuse me. It's a sport of Kramer's Red, if anybody's ever heard of that. Kramer's Rota or Kramer's Red. This is a sport, a golden one. So it has the magenta flowers with the yellow-green foliage with orange tints in the winter. So there's foliage color as well as pretty flowers. Eva Gold. Don't have too many of those left either. Okay, and here is Mary Helen. This is an old timer with kind of goldish foliage, and it gets orange tints in the winter with pink flowers as well. It's only 10 inches tall. Kramer's Red's bigger, or Eva Gold. It's bigger. Okay, and then there's a third one. Eva Gold, Mary Helen, Jack Brummage, Jack H. Brummage. I didn't have any left. That's another gold one with lavender flowers. Okay, now we're going to get into the Darliansis with the darker flowers. This is darker than Kramer's Red, the magenta. This is probably the darkest. It's Rubina. And it has really dark foliage with a deep purplish color with kind of rubyish colored flowers, darker than the red. They at least finish at almost purple. Okay, and then we have Kramer's Red. This is your Kramer's Red that you can buy at Home Depot. Buy it from them and it'll be cheaper. But you'll just have Kramer's Red. Yes, dear. always eat these, or no, they don't like them. Especially dark go right by them. I know because they're open, at home, my planters are open to the deer. So they trample them to get to the grapevines. And the cows swarm, they don't seem to care. Not over pots. I have opinions about deer. Okay, this is Lucy. It's a lot like Cramer's Red. It's called a tetraploid. I think the only difference is maybe the flowers are a little plumper, the foliage would be a little plumper. So there's a lot of similarities out there that Kurt Cromer and you named them all. I don't know why. So, probably for money, right? Okay, so this one is Alice. This was named after the gal I bought my nursery from, Alice Knight, by the Canadians. And this is a lovely magenta. And it is pretty in bloom. I like it better. So it's a little more clear, I think. In magenta, a little more clarity. So those are your darker flower darlings. I put them together. Okay, and we have Tanya, that's the low growing ones. Oh, here's some more darlings. Okay, this is a really interesting plant called pink harmony. I don't think it's necessarily hardy to the East Coast because it's the Aerugina parent of Irish dust, this on southern plant. It seems to lean towards, because I've seen it wiped out on the East Coast and I haven't heard that great reports about it, and it's a great new plant. So here it should be just fine. So this is your salmon hued flower, and it's a very iridescent color. It's one of the prettiest things I've seen for winter. It has very dark foliage in the winter with these bright iridescent flowers, and when people see it in bloom, it's irresistible. And I really like it, and it just loads itself up with flowers. So pink harmony. And I believe, is this winter surprise? No, it's not. There should be a winter surprise here somewhere, maybe, if I had enough to bring. I may not have. Ooh, Archie Graham. Well, I guess I'll sell it. I think I had an order that came in. They're gonna be short one. Oh, okay, this is winter treasure. This is another salmon color one, and it's growing like an Aerugina, very upright with long stems. And it also has the salmon color flowers. So there, I brought two salmon colored ones that are kind of rare. And they're a nice color break in the garden with all that sea of mauve. I'm sort of a hunch snob. And I really don't like Darley Dale, which is mid pink. It's just such a dull mauve color in the dull foliage. It blooms for a long time though. So, but these are all, you know, either January to May, November to May bloomers. They bloom for a really long time. Oh, well, lucky you. Here's one golden starlet. That's that real pretty one I said looks so good. This is a carney and the low growers. So there's your gold one that grows to 4 feet wide. Springwood white. This is the one that gets 5 feet wide. There are some more compact white growers that are offspring of this, and that would be Isabel, Schneekupa, Schneesturm. However, they're all sold out in my nursery. But this one is a real old timer, and it'll grow anywhere, and and the Darlianthus and the Carneas, they don't care about soil pH. They'll grow in any soil pH. Their requirement is good drainage. They don't like wet feet. So I have clay at home and I can kill them. Real easy. Okay, darling, Carneas. Tanya, this is kind of unusual because this is one of the few that's actually pretty in bud. And it has a really bright iridescent rose color. So, and they're all 6 inches tall. Okay, so that kind of gives you the idea of these. There's a lot of different colors from Bell's Extra Special. Only have 15 of these for the whole year. Here's one. And it gets the color of the bottle of whiskey. You saw that with the orange cans. It came out from Oregon out of a greenhouse, so it doesn't have the coloring yet. Okay, now we're going to go to Aeruginas. These are those tall, bushy ones. This is thingy, that one that I told you kind of burns back. So it's so far so good. So it hasn't burnt this year. So that's the one that claims 30 inches tall. I really think mine are more like 1.5 feet. Okay. Here's a tall one called Nana. Not tall, it is Nana, 8 inches. So it's the only short one. Here's Maxima. Here's the big guy. So this one's going to be 4 feet tall. And all in flowers, a pretty impressive sight. So. So the winter bees aren't very exciting because they don't have flowers. But it won't be long.
I have a question.
Yes.
It's the whole pruning thing.
Yes.
My husband does the pruning. I probably have 100 on a hillside.
Yes.
It's fabulous. I don't
Yes.
know what they are.
Mhm.
He goes out and I say, you have to prune them. Last time you were here, you said around the time you prune roses.
Right,
He just prunes everything.
right.
Heaths, Heathers, we don't know what they are. He just prunes them.
Prunes the winter flowers right off in May.
He does. Okay. All right. So how do you tell? I keep hearing, I'm trying to explain to him, Heathers have feathers, Heaths have teeth, right? How do you tell? I mean, he can't see any difference. Is there any way to explain that?
He never will see the difference, even if I told you.
Uh-huh.
So what I would do is, if it's in bloom when he's pruning,
Uh-huh.
don't touch it
Don't touch it.
till the end of May.
Okay,
If it's still looking pretty, leave it alone,
okay. All right.
and then prune. Or not, if it looks
So,
okay.
so
you can see.
basically prune when they start to get a little brown, the flowers start to get brown? Or
I would do
before
it in
that?
March. I would do it in March, because we used to say in the fall, so we're getting these weird weather systems. And if they go into winter with cut stems, they can die easily.
Uh-huh.
They stem split, right? They need to have some growth. So if you wanted to prune in the fall, you better do it at the end of summer so it can grow. So, and then you're gonna be cutting off some flowers. Okay, so we're gonna get into Erica Bangans. These are the ones that bees love. So they'll
In
the winter? Probably they'll be done blooming with the first killer frost. They usually bloom until then. And there's nothing, you can see now that they're coming more and more to these because the flowers are starting to stop where we're at. And as they continue to quit, they come to these more and more. And then the Darliances start opening up, and the Carnias, and then they go to those. So, but your two most drought tolerant plants are these, Erica Vagans and Erica Darliensis. These grow on the line cliffs of Dover. Miss Water, another useful one with a slightly more pinkish color. And I have one I've never sold before that I brought here because you're the garden club. And it's called Goldie. And there's a dog in the car named Goldie that's 10 years old. It's named after her. This has gold tips in the springtime through much summer until it starts blooming. It's still a little bit lighter in the tips, but it's good for showing the gold tip color on the new growth. And it is turning pink. I said pale blush pink, and I think that's about right. I'm sort of guessing because it's so new. Okay, and Yellow John was the other one. If you want some foliage color, here's the Yellow John for a heat with the lavender flowers. So you want some added color that is not maybe a spectacular firefly or one of those. It's still awful pretty. It gets orange tints, and the pruning is pretty, not much. So, okay. Here's one of my favorites. These little guys. Pink pepper. See that little urban tetra? Isn't that just as cute as the book there? Little tiny flowers, little tiny foliage, and every place you cut it, it just branches like crazy. So I shape it when it's young. So that's a good spot for up close because it's kind of a miniature, kind of like 4 by 8, 8 by 10 kind of thing. And here is if you want some foliage color. This is Swedish yellow. And this is a gold tetralux that's pretty rare. I lost it for a number of years, then I got it back from my Oregon grower. This is where this one's from. And it doesn't bloom a whole lot, but once it starts, it finally will get going, but it takes a while to start. And it is a pretty plant. Sunshine gold. Okay. Cinerias, the flashiest of the Heaths and Heathers. Sorry, I don't have golden drop this year. I tried to get it. I thought my supplier would have it. She didn't. So this is celebration. So I kind of call this the gold version of Golden Star that blooms white in the winter. Celebration is kind of your summer one that blooms white in the summer that really catches people's eye. It's very feathery, nice looking plant. And it grows a lot in California, dry conditions. It seems to do pretty well because it goes down there a lot. Hairy cherry, you can see they're pretty bright flowers. So those are Ericacenarias. Almost done, guys. Done well. Okay. The Heather Society seems to have adopted Andromeda polifolia for whatever reason, that genus. Here's Curica mine. So this is an Andromeda with pretty pink flowers. And the other one, a lot of people like is blue eyes. You've probably seen this around the nurseries maybe. And it has a pink blush flower like Lily of the Valley style, kind of like that Debetia style, almost only smaller in the Andromedas. And the pink blush flower with the blue foliage is really a stunner. When they're in bloom, I can't stop them from leaving the nursery. And here's the Debetias. These are quite popular. They can do with a pruning in the spring of these stems. You can see how they're going to finish. These are probably some of the longest blooming ones. A lot of them start at Memorial Day and they finish at Pillar Frost. They just bloom and bloom and bloom and bloom. Despite what the text says, they bloom a lot. And then there's a white version. This is a popular one. Big fat bell flowers. Okay, so that's to be. Okay, there's two last ones I want to show you, and then we're done.
Life expectancy on all of them?
I don't have one.
When you were here last time, you said 10, 15 years.
Depends on how you want them to look.
Uh-huh,
So I know Alice has some that are 50 years old.
okay.
And
Are they hard to transplant?
yes, for up to 2 years, and after that, it's tough. Although, again, I had a gal in Pistol River claim that she digs a V trench around them, about a foot deep, and puts potting soil in it, and you cut the roots right, so that potting soil, they go in that circle, and then she can move any size she claims. I haven't done it because I have a nursery and I just get a new one. So I don't know what to tell you about it. Tree heaths. There is Golden Joy, sportive alpina. That will get 4 or 5 feet tall. This is a very rare plant. Ercoscoparia subspecies azorica, funny name. This is from the Spain, Portugal region. Its flowers they're tiny, but the spectacular thing about it, when it grows out, the feathery foliage is really cool. So just from those rare items, you know. And there's another tree heath that's hardy. That one's hardy to zone 7, 8. Here's the other tree heath I brought. Oh, look, weeds are free. Okay, so this is Pink Joy. That was that white one that was just totally covered in white flowers. It's called Pink Joy because the buds are pink, but the flowers are white. And okay, let's get lastly to the South Africans. I love these things. I have an Erica house at home that I put a heater in the winter. Who was I telling about the hummingbirds this winter? Yeah, they came in when it was 17 down there.
They are nice.
And I had it all in a case of plastic, just a little grower for my Ericas. And there were probably some of them are, geez, they're like 3, 4 feet tall now by 3 feet wide. They're huge. They loved it. Put them in the integral soil with some sand. And I had gnats everywhere. Put up the sticky stuff. I still had gnats. The hummingbirds were in there for 5 days and I didn't have a single gnat left. And I opened the door every day and said, you can leave now. Not during the cold. I put in a thing of hummingbird food, you know, with their syrupy stuff and gnats. And I had a ring cam there so I could watch it when I kept looking at and saying, what are they doing flying around like they're fighting? And it took us a day to realize they were eating gnats. That's what they're doing. They're flying, leaping around and catching gnats. And nobody does it like Mother Nature. I mean, you can have all the sticky cards in the world and nobody does it like Mother Nature does. So this shouldn't freeze probably, this is one of the hardier ones. I see 30, but this one's probably hardy to 28. So. And there was one more, there's a couple more. There was another one over here with the bells on it. I gotta be careful that it doesn't get sold as a hardy plant. Maybe it's over here. It has apricot colored bells. Oh, this is winter fire. This one blooms spring and fall. It grows in Sacramento outside, about 3 feet tall, and it has beautiful, bright orange red flowers, orange to red flowers, reddish. Pruning is the only true red. Oh, here it is. This one, see these little flowers? Hummingbirds like this too, but, this thing, I have one about 3 feet tall and 2.5 feet wide. Every square inch is covered with these flowers. There's thousands upon thousands upon thousands. You can't even see the foliage. Does it every year reliably. This one is as hardy as African fire because I've had it for so long. I think down to probably 28. So that is it. 11 o'clock on the dime.
Question,
Yes.
you mentioned earlier, or you showed a picture of one that you said, I think it's a heath that blooms in January and the bees love it.
Mhm.
What was that?
Would you repeat the question? Would you repeat the question for the audience?
She was wondering about the ones that bloom for the bees in the dead of winter, like January. And that would be the Darliensis and some of the Carnias. The Darliensis are a little more popular than the Carnias. Some of the Carnias bloom a little less, but it might be the right plant for the right space because they only get 6 to 8 inches tall, mostly 6. And then the Darliensis can be, boy, 10 inches to 2 feet to that one gold rush, which is more like 3 feet. So. Any other questions? Yes?
So when you're tending the flowers, do you take care of the pH in the soil?
Nope,
You're not worried about acidity or?
not in the Northwest. There's some that like alkaline soil, but they all like all of them like acid soil. And that's what we have. So we don't know, even our sand is acidic. So it's real easy here. So.
Our potting mix is literally at least half,
Bark.
fir bark,
Yeah,
so
Yeah.
it gets a lot of natural acid in that mix.
I find with the Tegrill mix, the compost is class A compost and sewage sludge, Tacoma Grow. We get that, and it has made a nicer caliber stem, thicker. And they seem to be a little winter hardier, I think, with the natural compost. But the soil pH is more towards neutral, so you really need to cut it down into the acid range. So that's what we do. And I do use a professional nursery fertilizer. Those little green balls that are, take forever to gradually release, because we found with the natural ones, they have a tendency to mold the plants in the nursery in the pots. They just consume the plant and they release all at once, which isn't good for the environment either. So these just very gradually release. And all the ones I've grown, you'll see a pot cover on them like this.
Nice
Oh,
job.
sweet. Darn it. I want these back, so if you happen to buy one, make sure I get this back, because I can't buy them anymore, and they were expensive, and they're the equivalent of an employee, because they keep the weeds out of the plant. I may get a few in the middle, but I get very few in the plant itself. That's part of how I do this myself. And we keep the cost down by, we use recycled pots. The neighborhood brings me pots, so I have tall ones, short ones, square ones, round ones. So I haven't had to buy a pot in many years. And if I have my way, I never will. He said, no, don't do that anymore. I'll buy you the pots. No, I want to recycle them. So between this composted sewage sludge, the recycling of the pots and the materials, I've done pretty good. I just can't manage the fertilizer. That's professional. But other than that, I reuse tanks as much as possible. I have pots and pots and
All
pots
your
of
shipping
tags.
containers are all.
Shipping containers are all used boxes and the neighborhood brings me their boxes and all their packing material from Amazon everywhere. So, I'm as conscientious of as can manage to be. So, most of the gallons are $12 a piece if you wanna buy them. There's some oddballs, the tree heaths are more because they take a lot longer. They're 15 as well as the South Africans because they're hard as heck to root. And, let's see, the small tree heaths are 12 because they're hard to root. Have a lot of failures. But this one's $9.50, so, yes.
Besides the South African ones, there are others that are good for the wintering hummingbirds.
You know, they look at the other flowers. I'm not sure they do anything with them. You know how they zoom up to stuff and look at it?
Right.
But I never see them fight over the other flowers or really do much with them. It just seems to be the South African because of those tubes,
Right.
you know, and the colors, yeah. Yeah, they love those tubes, so, that's part of the reason I have a Yorka house, just because we enjoy the hummingbirds so much, and it's kind of near the house, so we can enjoy it. So, I'll have that long after I get rid of my nursery, I know I'll have that. Yes.
I was just wondering, I have like a rocky ledge, and I don't know how deep the soil goes. It could be like an inch or it could be more than that, right? How deep do you have like?
They're rated for drain fields, they're shallow rooted plants, they don't have a big taproot, they just have a little bit. And one thing when you're potting one up, or I'm the one that pots, you unpot, sorry. When you're planting one, you want to, we just take a stick and rough up the sides and the bottom. We don't pull them apart, because if you pull them apart too much, you can get up into the ground and kill it. However, if there's a root bound one, and I noticed my supplier from Oregon, I don't know that I have any here, may have sent me some root bound ones, and what I very easily pot those up by taking a pair of scissors and I just cut up the side halfway, about 4 times around, and an X in the bottom. I don't pull apart or go very far in, I just cut that circling business, right? And I can pot up anything with that. I may lose 1 or 2, but hardly anything.
And how deep do you think?
As deep as the root ball is, you know, and I think they don't go down any more than 1.5 feet, do they?
Oh, no.
They're really
They don't
shallow
go that
rooted.
down. The root spread.
My display garden got a couple thousand plants in it. And I had to pickaxe out every hole because all there is sand and boulders. There is no dirt. And so I just shoved these suckers in the ground. And I know one corner of my greenhouse is hardpan and I couldn't make it any lower. I'm a higher end in one corner of my greenhouse over there. So they seem to be fine, but I have to water them a lot more. At home, where the pioneers made soil, I have 100 feet of clay. I had just the opposite problem. And we had to raise up or they drowned. And I noticed one hillside where it would weep out, everything above the weep out line of clay was okay, but below it was not. And we notched out, you know, with pickaxe again, notched out holes to be drainage. And they seem to grow in that. And I have found that if you bark something really nicely, sometimes their roots are alive in the bark layer, right? If they can't get to where they need to be. But that's just a matter of watering. So it's kind of common sense, which gardeners like you have. General public, not so much. So they can kill anything.
Talk about for bark, so how big or small is the bark?
What do you buy?
I go to find this grind I can get.
For potting soil, but
Yeah.
for the garden? At
Well,
home?
I think that the finer mix is, you know, it's a little denser mat for using it as mulch. The coarse stuff it takes a long time to break down. And so it all depends what you're looking for, you know, if you're looking for the aesthetics of a coarse bark, then,
Finer is his answer.
but yeah.
He's my schleppy peppy. He's the one that carries, you know, bark and dirt and boxes and flats. I put it together, he finishes the packaged product for me that way. He goes to the post office every day with the big 50-pound boxes, and when I have a truckload, I load it, he unloads it, that kind of thing. So he's been a great help for me to continue. And I probably will retire from shipping by fall of 2026 maybe, but I need to grow something or I'll die. So I may keep the garden open down there for a while. I do have a tenant that lives there, who was a former employee, and we want to keep that place with a modular as long as we can for her. She has cheaper rent that she can find anywhere, and keep that going. So that gives me an excuse to keep growing and selling to the public there. But we're closing down now from November 1st to March 1st. We're closed now every year, so we can do some other things. But I still have to pot, I still have to take cuttings, you know, all of that, but that's a joy to me to not be on the phone talking to customers all day. So if you're a farmer, you're a gardener, you understand that. So yeah, and I had employees and I got rid of them all, and I just try to get smaller and smaller. When he stays my back, I'll give up and I'll stop.
Where are you located?
The display garden in the sales area is in Shelton by Spencer Lake, it's called. So it's actually north of Shelton, about 18 miles.
10 miles north of Shell.
10?
Yeah.
Our house is 18 miles.
Yeah.
Yeah, 10. The display garden like 10 or 11. It's right next door to Olympic Bakeries, and just down the street is Spencer Lake Bar and Grill. There's like 4 businesses and the hamlet. It's not a town. It's on Pickering Road. So, and we're quite a ways from the actual town. So we live on Hurstein Island. So I'm about 8 miles from the garden, and that's where I propagate and ship out of. Then I pot up at Hurstein and take them out to Spencer Lake to grow on where there's sunlight. So, but it's fun to grow these things. I've always done the small pots, so it's really fun to do these. So if you want some, get them while you can. I still have a brain left.
So I'm interested in the trees.
Yes.
So can you tell me the width that they'll grow and how much sun they need?
They say they're 1.5 feet wide, but I think with many years, they're probably 3.
And deer pressure, yes or no?
They do prune trees, but I can tell you is that this is an area that is heavily trafficked by deer, a trail, and they hang out. Other areas where they don't hang out, it's not much trouble. So they will bring back I swear my carnias at home are lower than my ones at Spencer Lake, but they still bloom the same. So they may be doing me a favor. I'm not sure. Darliensis, they don't ever seem to touch. Heather, they don't ever seem to touch. I've seen them in some years prune vegans a little, but then they decided maybe they didn't like them or something. But you know, I have deer that eat rhododendrons. They come back every single year and eat the same ones. So if I tell you it is or isn't going to do something, someone's going to make a liar out of me. So, but I would say consistently in the heavy deer area, they're eating those, and rabbits there's no hope for. So, Debecias, I've heard of them eating the flowers in some places. Not where I'm at, but I have heard of them doing it in California. So, and I've heard in deep snowbanks in Vermont, they'll dig down until they get the carnias, just the carnias, and nibble on those, nothing else. So, I don't know. But they do like South Africans. They like Andromeda polifolias. I noticed that they eat those too. So, but other than that, I think we do pretty well.
Are there any for any north facing side, or do they all really need straight sun?
They don't need it all year. I mean, okay, I know what you're saying. I've experimented with this. Okay, they don't do well under big fir trees. I'll let you know. They stay the same size if they're planted at the base or near it, or shrink. If there's a lot of shade, Erica vegans is your friend. They'll always bloom in that no matter what, because I have a couple like that, did that on purpose, and they're doing great. And they seed that way as well. I have some Erica vegans that self-seeded. And they typically seed in that pinkish, light pinkish color. And then your Debecias will seed and take over in whatever color they are. It seems like they're a little more true, but nothing comes out quite true to color for the original. All right.